Hello, this is Dennis with A1 Telephone Service and Repair, A1 Electronics. You can get us on the web at www.a1-telephone.com. And I want to show you a customer's telephone. Cheryl sent this telephone in. This is a Novelty brass telephone. It sits on a stand, but Cheryl didn't send the stand in because there's no reason to, because of the weight and the size of the telephone. This telephone had some problems, and one of them was the numbers wouldn't dial on this. The 1, I'll show you here real quick. The 1 wouldn't dial, the 4 wouldn't dial, the 7 wouldn't dial, and the star wouldn't dial. And I may have said in the initial checkout that we thought it was the tone generator chip that was causing the problem, and sure enough it was. I want to show you something here real quick. We kind of mapped out, if you can still see it, I drew on the circuit board and kind of mapped out, here's 1, and we colored this with blue or purple, and that goes over to the 7, and then goes over here to the 4, and also goes over here to the ribbon cable connection that goes over to the IC chip on this second board here. And basically that confirms what I had suspected. The 1, the star, the 7, and the 4 are all commonly connected by the ground. The ground has been lost in the IC tone generator chip. Now sometimes you can work around that chip to fool it, but it has lost an internal transistor, diode, resistor, whatever inside the chip. It's lost a transistor or a resistor or whatever, and it can no longer activate the ground, because both of these, any one of these numbers has 2 connections. The 1 has 2 connections, the 2 has 2 connections, a positive and a ground. So every time you hit 1, it has to, inside the tone generator chip, it creates a tone. But since the ground on the 1, the star, the 7, and the number 4 has been lost internally, it can no longer create the ground that it needs to create the tone. So basically it comes down to, it's the tone generator IC. And that was just one problem. This telephone has several problems. Here's a network and bell in here, and the bell doesn't ring. The hook switch doesn't work properly. And here's your network. And we have this tied off like this on the dial pad. If you don't do this, you'll drop all your numbers out of the back here. So it's just kind of being held together so it doesn't all get dumped out. So that's one way you can do that if you ever have to. So this phone had several problems. And one of them is I'm going to desolder right now, and I'm going to try to do that in front of you. And I already desoldered some of the board for the chip, to take the chip out of here, right in here. But here's another thing. Here's an old chip in a socket. And the reason why I put old chips in there is so that when you're soldering in this socket, see, this socket is going to make our life easier. I can put the socket on this board and then plug chips in it when I think they're good, and we don't have to unsolder them or desolder them or resolder them. I can simply use this socket, and that's what I'm going to do. You just take the old chip out after you get done soldering it in, and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to remove this socket, or this IC, but we're going to put it back in, because why I like to put these old ICs in there that I know are no good is for the heat. I don't want the soldering these chips in, or these sockets in, you don't want to ruin them. So what you do is you put an old chip in it and use it as a heat sink. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to desolder the rest of this IC chip that's in this board that's bad. So let's start that. And hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing here. I'm going to go ahead and desolder this one. Okay, I'm going to clean up some of the solder on this board to get these pins out. And like I said earlier, I desoldered most of this earlier because I probably wouldn't have the time to desolder it. YouTube doesn't give us much time. So here now we have our chip that we want to take out. Now, in electronics, chips have number 1, and it's right there. It's indicated, and plus you always want to mark it. So if you don't know or you think you might forget, you can always mark it. Okay, and it's a good idea to keep track when you take a chip out, because you never know when you're going to get a chance to work on something again. So what we want to do now is we make sure we know where number 1 is, and we want to start removing this IC chip from the board. And sometimes they come out real easily, and then other times they need to be pried on a little bit. So it's like being a little bit of a dentist too. So let's see. It's a little difficult to do this on film, but on the video. But what I'm going to do is sometimes you have to hit this with a soldering gun. One of these legs they'll stick. Sometimes they stick, and you got to work it out. And we got one little guy he just wants to hold on really bad for some odd reason, and I'm probably not going to be able to show you this on the video. There he goes. He's out now. Generally, it's not that difficult, okay? So now we've taken our chip out, and we're going to want to get the other chip back in. I'm going to check my time real quick. We've got about 7 so minutes here left for me to finish this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these pins straightened out and get it soldered in here. So let's do this real quick. I'm going to try to get this back in the time that they allow you on YouTube, but they don't give you much time, and it might take me that much time just to get the thing in there. Okay. I'm going to check this real careful. Make sure all of our pins came through. And as long as all of our pins come through, we can start resoldering it. It looks like they're all there. So now we want to clean the soldering iron a little bit. We want to start resoldering all these pins. We'll do that real quick. Now on some IC chips you'll notice that not every pin is always used. And in some instances you want to solder them all, okay? But in other instances, like on this, where it's just not that big of a deal because the chip's not going to fall out. So the ones that you know for sure that do not have any kind of connection, you don't necessarily need to make them solder them in. What they'll do is they'll put a little solder pad on there, and sometimes it's just not necessary to solder them up. And in this case it looks to be like this pin here and this pin here, and this pin here has no connection. And we will check that and make sure that that's, that's true. And it sure looks like that's true. So we're not going to even solder them in. We'll check our time here real quick. We're about 10 minutes into this thing, so basically we're going to have to shut the video down. Thank you for watching, and this is Dennis with A1 Telephone, and goodbye.